In the legal world, there is a combination of forces that feed a corrupt and suffocating legal system for attorneys. Law schools, law professionals, judges, and even the firms themselves for whom you work create a system, a matrix, if you will, that is nothing like what you thought when you passed the bar exam. The purpose of this podcast is to help you escape this legal matrix, leading you out of the proverbial desert to be free of the bondage of the matrix. Hosted by Bryce D. Nyer, attorney at law with over 30 years experience in the trenches of civil and criminal litigation at the state, federal, and international levels. He's a highly accomplished and resourceful legal professional, a true master of his craft, and he's here to help you get your life back. Here's your host, Bryce D. Nyer.
Hello. This is Bryce D. Nyer coming at you from Fayetteville, North Carolina, home of Fort Bragg, for another episode of Escape the Legal Matrix. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time zone, country, territory, state you may be in, including your state of mind. So listen, we got a kind of interesting topic tonight. Wait, they're all interesting. If I'm talking, it's interesting. So I want to talk to you about when life becomes a cluster. Now, there's a word that gets added onto it that we used to use in the military when I was an Army officer, but I'm not going to say it here because these podcasts, they go out. But you could probably guess what I want to say. And what I mean by a cluster, I mean things can go wrong on any given day, no matter how well your plans are. So for you law students who we're definitely reaching out to, especially in your second and third years, to open, own, operate, and lead your own law firm in collapse time. That's part of what we do here, this thing called the Junior Partner Program, where you do everything I do in reality. In collapse, the amount of time will take you to open, own, operate, and lead your own law firm. But you got to understand something. In life, the clusters are going to come. Chaos, adversity, just total insanity. And this actually happened to me over the last 2 weeks. It's just been one calamity after another. Major events, including spending thousands of dollars, up front, all kinds of things, dealing with the Department of Motor Vehicles, cancer with my dog, probably may have to get a new roof for my house because of storm damage, all kinds, you name it. It's just everything that's just happened, trying to meet deadlines. And every time I turn around, there's just some conflict, some collision, some obstacle, some pinhead distracting me from getting things done. And it can be chaos, and it can be extremely frustrating unless you have a certain phraseology that you understand that sometimes things just aren't going to go as planned. And I kind of want to talk about that a little bit. So let's kind of go back in history a little bit to World War II. Now, some of you obviously may be way too young to really know much about it, except what you read on Wikipedia, Google. But my dad was an Army officer in World War II. His brother was an officer in World War II, but in the Pacific. And, well, so it was a different world then. But when you kind of go back to that time in World War II, one of the key things was the D-Day invasion, the invasion of Europe, which took place on June the 6th, 1944. That was the day that the Allies crossed the English Channel and landed into France for the full assault in Normandy. Now, Eisenhower was the Supreme Allied Commander at the time, General Dwight Eisenhower. And, of course, the weather kind of sucked during the weeks leading up. Storms, high seas. And if you've never been across the English Channel, it can be pretty treacherous. Even though the distance between the coast of England and the coast of France is not overly far, like traveling from the United States to Europe across the ocean, but still, an ocean is an ocean is an ocean, and it's Mother Nature, and they don't take any prisoners. So Eisenhower was not sure what the weather was going to do. And, during World War II, they obviously the Allies had some victories, but they also had some setbacks. And sometimes things didn't go as they planned or didn't go well. And they had these clusters of chaos, confusion, and just total Just total insanity. So in D-Day, Eisenhower actually prepared 2 radio announcements and 2 letters. One that if the invasion failed, he accepted full accountability and responsibility. And then the other one, if the landings were successful. Now, he knew that, when it comes to weather, regardless of being a 4-star general at the time, and then ultimately became a 5-star general, there was no way he was going to be in a position to control the weather. Human beings really can't do it. I don't care if you can seed the clouds for rain. You can't control certain things. It just doesn't happen. And so he took a risk. He took a huge risk, understanding as the Supreme Allied Commander at the time that it all fell on his shoulders. And for you law students and you new young lawyers to, opening, owning, operating, leading your law firm, there are great benefits to doing it, great freedoms to it. But with great freedoms comes great accountability and responsibility. And that means in times of trouble, in times of chaos, in times of obstacle, in times of pits, in times of sedations, in times of collisions, and in times of total all-out hellish war, you have to have the frame of mind, the frame of body, the frame of spirit, the frame of emotion, the frame of mental well-being to carry the day, to lead. And you have to learn to shoot and move and communicate when everything is a cluster. The fog of war will some days be all around you. And the thing about it is, most military organizations, when they're in war zones, when soldiers, sailors, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, Merchant Marine, all of our branches of armed forces are in some sort of conflict in actual war. There's really different types of wars. They're using weapons, whether it's automatic weapons, explosive, drones, whatever. But in the war that you're in the legal matrix, it gets a little bit deeper too. Because there's this huge spiritual battle, in my opinion, that's going on today of good versus evil. And for law students and lawyers, there's some tough choices you're going to have to make. Because some people will tell you that the law is clear-cut, and it's not clear-cut. It's just not. And you are going to face the clusters in the legal matrix. You're going to be forced to make some really tough decisions. And right now, for your law students, your tough decision in law school is, what are you going to do this weekend? Or should you go ahead and read your assignment and study? Or go screw off and have a beer and binge watch Netflix? For young lawyers, like, I'm tired, Friday, the weekend's approaching. Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? Which barbecue or party am I going to go to? But sooner or later, everything around you is going to come tumbling down on you. And it is going to be a cluster. And you are going to be in this state of where it's fog and confusion and this lack of clarity. And you've got to learn to stand up, take charge, and lead your teams, lead your clients, and mostly lead yourself out of the cluster of chaos and confusion and total insanity. And so I was thinking about this all during the last 2 weeks, and especially this week. Man, everything that my schedule just got train wrecked. Everything I had planned over the last 2 weeks, it just went haywire. And I just had to roll with the punches. I have a great team here. And they know what to do. They know when to do it. They know when to commit. I mean, so I can be away and they can take care of quite a number of things. And of course, with, cell phones, smartphones, and all these devices, we can shoot, move, and communicate most of the time together. And of course, sometimes when technology fails, you have to have backup systems. So if they can't get in touch with me, then they have the plan of knowing what to do, and they just have to make a decision and do it. Right or wrong, key thing is make a decision. Don't just sit there and waffle in the cluster and not make a decision. In the military, where a lot of times people get killed is when somebody just can't make a decision. That's it. I mean, that happens. And so in the legal field, in this legal matrix, you're going to have to make split decisions in the middle of a cluster. You are. You could be in a courtroom and the judge is being totally difficult, puts you on the spot, which may cost your client freedom or money or custody or all sorts of things. And they want an answer right then and there of your position. And you're thinking in your head, if I answer this way, it's going to go. And you're like, you just don't know what to do. And you're like, I'll tell you what you do. You make a decision and you just go with it. You just go with it. And whatever decision the judge may make in this example, that's the decision unless you choose to appeal it if the decision is appealable. Not all judgments or orders are appealable if they're not final typically. But the point I'm making here is when you get tossed into this Roman Coliseum called the legal matrix, man, the clusters they're nonstop. They're not going to take pity on you because you're a brand new lawyer, right out of law school, just passed the bar. It's not going to happen. They'll give you a little bit of grace for just a little bit of time, but no senior lawyer that has their reputation on the line in a courtroom is going to want to be beat by some sniveling little cub. That's not going to happen. So you have to be ready on any given day that the clusters are just going to come and everything's just going to explode and everything's going to go haywire and your day and your schedule and your plans are going to be train wrecked and you are going to have to learn to pivot. You're going to have to learn to shift. You're going to have to change direction and to shoot, move, and communicate. And it may happen in a split second. And then 5 minutes later, you may have to shoot, move, and communicate again. Shoot, move, and communicate. Shoot, move, and communicate. Shift, pivot. And it's going to be taxing. But here's the thing. If you train, if you have repetition, if you practice, if you plan, your percentages, your chances of successfully navigating through the cluster are way greater and way better than those that just sit around and don't ever plan and are not ready. That's just fact. That's not fiction. That's not conspiracy theory. When I was an Army officer, when I came into one of my units, I was tasked with helping revamp the war plan for our battalion, company, and even in NATO. And so when I looked at, were we ready to go to war, there were things that had to change. There were times when we were called out and alerted, it was just a cluster, and I'm like, okay, we're going to fix this like right now, and this is what we're going to do. And the more we practiced, the more we planned, the more we just did the repetitions, then everybody was just able to do their mission just like that, snapping their fingers and go, snap, go. And they had the confidence and the certainty to get their particular mission done versus some of the other units and the failed leadership that they didn't lead. They didn't plan. They didn't practice. They didn't have repetition. And so when the clusters came, they became casualties of the cluster. You can call it the cluster field. Again, there's no name for it, but we're going to keep it clean here. So what is the lesson in all of this? Well, here's the lesson. In life, and in this thing called the legal matrix, for you young law students and brand new lawyers, the clusters are going to be there. And you're going to sit there and whine and cry and go, why is this happening? Why is it happening? And the simple answer is because it is. Because life is not fair. It was never fair. It's never been fair. And it's just not going to be fair. You have to create the justice, you have to create the fairness, and you have to go wage war with the legal matrix, and you have to war with the clusters that come along. And you're going to have to do it. That's why here at my law firm, we're building this junior partner program for you law students to come in between your first and second and your second and third, during the second, third year of law school, to come in to this law firm and learn to lead, to be a leader, to gather valuable skills so that one day, on the day you're sworn in, instead of working for somebody else, you're the senior partner on day one and you open, own, operate, and lead. And when the clusters come rushing at your door, guess what you are? You're just a monster. Monster. They're the Goliath laughing at you, and you know who you are? You're the David with the sling, and they're laughing. And of course, we know what happened between David and Goliath. We know the end of that story. And the monster was slayed. So, here's the deal. Be the cluster buster. Be the cluster buster. And go out there and wage war with the legal matrix. But mostly, wage war with yourself to be the very best version of who you can be in these domains of body, of being, of balance, and business, so that you can have fulfillment. Remember, be a leader, not a lemming. Go wage war with the legal matrix and be ready to deal with the clusters that will come along. Okay, this is Bryce Nair. It's been great to be with all of you. I can't wait to our next session. Until then, remember love and light. Again, this is Bryce Nair coming live to you from Fayetteville, North Carolina, home of Fort Bragg, where everyday men and women don the uniform. And what do? They go wage war with the enemy to preserve our freedoms. And a lot of times, man, they're waging war in the cluster. This is Bryce out.